Hi guys, it's Jill Blanchett with Green Thumb Stampers. I'm here for another version of Finally Friday. Today, you might need to fasten your seatbelts because we are on a wild ride with the Gilded leafing. Holy cow, if you're not a glitter fan, you certainly aren't going to be a Gilded leafing fan. So hang tight and I will get right down and dirty with it. I'm going to start by doing a border. So I'm going to do this border and then I'm going to let it sit and dry and see, because this is going to be, I'm using this Good Morning Magnolia border down here. So I am going to give it time to dry before I pluck all the gold leafing off and just see what we get. Hopefully I've figured it out and I know what I got to do now. It only took me 3 days of playing with this to try and get it figured out. That's why this video is late, because I keep trying and getting discouraged. So, alright, I'm going to go this direction. I'm going to go up and down with the border for my card. So, I'll show you. That's going to put the verse mark down. Oh, I forgot the embossing buddy on there. Hang on, let me go get it. I have my embossing buddy, and just to be safe, I'm gonna start over again. So I'm gonna rub the embossing buddy on there so that the oils don't stick, the extra embossing heat and stick powder doesn't stick. We don't want any extra of the gold flecking to stick, the leafing stuff. We don't want any extra gold flecks. And since I practiced this a few times, you're gonna see I got gold flecks coming off because it was on my embossing buddy. I told you, it goes pretty much everywhere. So I got the embossing buddy on there. We'll put this little border back down, like so. Then I have a piece of paper. Normally I have another container for my heat and stick powder kind of stuff, but I'm going to use this piece of paper today. I'm just going to sprinkle it on there. You want to make sure you got a good coverage of it. I don't know if it would help to smash it on. I'm going to try it just to make sure I got, because it is a fine detailed stamp. I want to make sure I got it all covered. And I can see a little extra on there. I'm going to try and scrape that off a little bit. Must be I touched down the edges of the stamp. So let me put this back before I end up with it everywhere. Move that out of the way for a second. Then I got my heat tool here. And they say not to overheat the powder. So I think I was doing that on my first couple samples too, as I have an old gun, and so it might get hotter than the current Stampin' Up! Heat tools. So I am going to just heat it for a quick second till I see it start to turn, and then I'm going to call it done. I don't know if you could see it's starting to turn already. So there we go. I'm going to call it done. And then I got my little pan of embossing or gold fleck stuff, gold gilded leafing. I'm going to stick it in there upside down, and I'm pressing down on it just to make sure I got all of it covered. Looks pretty good. I'm going to stick it down on stick a little bit more on there. I'm going to stick it with my hands just to make sure. I want to make sure that I got it all covered. Okay. I'm going to tap it off, get any really loose stuff off, and hope that it works. This stuff is so fine. Fine, fine, fine. You can't even feel it between your fingers. Alright, now I'm going to set that aside for a second. Just going to let it dry. See if I get success with that or not. And then in the meantime, I'm going to fling that stuff everywhere. I'm going to show you guys a flower from that. It was like intended for. It's in the suite that it's being sold with. I will show you this. I already stamped the flower down, and yes, I used 2 colors. You don't need to, because this gold leafing should cover all that up, but just in case it didn't, I wanted it on there. And it has dried. Sarah Douglas's video said to make sure that it's dry. And I did do that. I made sure that it was dry. However, I did not make sure my stamp was clean before I brought it over. So now my Versamark's probably getting... So I'm going to lay this down. With my Versamark. Pull in my paper from my heat and stick powder. Oh, I forgot the embossing buddy again, you guys. This stuff smells too. Smells kind of industrial to me. Could be just my nose. Okay, I'm going to tap it off. Looks like I did pretty good without the extra powder anywhere on the paper. Okay, I'm going to heat it. Again, I'm going to heat it just until it looks wet so that I don't overheat it, as that was stated to be an issue. And I didn't dump my whole jar of leafing in here. I didn't dump my whole jar of leafing in here either, you guys. I just put some of it because there's so much in that jar. It expands so crazy. So there we go. We've got it from our pinkies to our earrings. It's everywhere. And I do have a dryer sheet. A used dryer sheet is supposed to help with the static cling, which does help me pick it up. So I keep that in this container with my sponge. Now I'm going to try and brush this off and see what we get. I was finding, because I cut my sponge, that these rougher edges did seem to be pulling it off harder. So I'm just using the rounded part now, and I'm just going to go over it really light, like barely touching it, just to get the excess to come off. Oh. Like so. And I don't know that I have success here. I can keep, don't want to mess with it, because see, like I said, I think this, when I start to get the excess big pieces and stuff off, this is where I'm going to end up pulling off all the leafing from, see, like this one here, I would try and scrape off, but if I scrape it off, I'm afraid I'm going to pull the whole piece off, so I'm just going to go in a light circle. But yep, see, I'm fussing with it too much, and that's probably where most of my problem is. Stop fussing with it. See, watch, I'm doing it for you guys. If I keep just fussing, I keep scraping it off, and before you're done, you basically have nothing left on there. So see, it's me. It's not necessarily this gold leafing, it's operator error. So there's a little bit on that, different areas. So you're just going to have to be okay with it and stop the fussing. Because as you can see, I've scraped off a bunch of it. This one's sticking up here. As soon as I try and pull on it, I'm just going to scrape it off. Maybe I could use my finger. Maybe that would be a better option. So that was my flower. So now we're going to work on the little border one that we made. It's been sitting, it's dried up. I'm going to try and flick off some of this excess with my finger. See how that works. I'm afraid. Had some fine areas on it, so I'm just afraid. As with my flower, if I get too heavy-handed on it, it's going to pull it right off those smaller areas. And then the gold leafing, I'll show you in a second. The gold leafing comes in a canister that is compact inside there. It's very compact. Guys, I'm afraid to do work on this. I'm afraid it looks like it might have worked, and I'm afraid I'm gonna pull it off. Yep, I'm starting to pull it off. Maybe I can use my finger. It looks pretty, but I'm afraid I'm gonna ruin it. This is kind of like archaeology, digging for dinosaur bones. You gotta unearth them gently. I probably need my stamp out here so I can see what I'm unearthing. So I got a little bit right in here. So I guess doing this is probably about as delicate as the gold leafing feels. You're not just going to scrub it like you're scrubbing the burnt on lasagna out of the casserole pan. See, I'm starting to lose it there in the... Okay, guys, I'm going to stop right there. See what I could do with my finger. I'm just going to rub my finger on it a little bit to kind of press it in. Stop it from peeling. Kind of put the lid back on this. If you could see how gold my desktop is, you guys. Alright, so well, I guess you can sort of see how gold it is, can't you? Now if you want to save all those pieces, by the time you're done, you probably just want to throw the whole shebang right in the garbage. But I'm going to put those back in my container and get out my little, can't see what I got going, I'll get my little dryer sheet out again and pull these pieces off. But you'll be wearing them, you'll be finding them. It's kind of worse than glitter. My friend Shauna, my old boss, hates glitter with a passion. I ought to make her a card with this stuff and see if I get a Valentine from her next year. Alright. So I got most of that out of the way. I wanted to show you the bottle of the gold leafing, gilded leafing. And when I tell you, you see how much is still in that container? And I've made I can't tell you how many things that I've made and thrown away and whatever with this. But they come in pieces. Sometimes you'll get great big long ones. But it poofs. You see I pulled that up and now it's... So there's a ton inside this jar. And if you use it all in your lifetime, it'll be amazing. But that's it. I wanted to show you that. You saw my little flower that kind of was a little bit of a bust, but it's all I'm finding in the heavy-handedness, the how much heat and stick too. If by chance you can get the heat and stick on a little bit thicker, I find that that helps as well because there's more powder, heat and stick stuff for it to grab onto. And then I forgot to show you guys, I made this little, I punched out a butterfly. This was one of those bits that I had left from that border die, or that plaid builder die. So I punched out a butterfly and I peeled off, and underneath then is the adhesive sheet because I had used the adhesive sheet on the back of it. So I flipped it and I stuck it in the heat and stick powder just to see what it would work versus the one I showed you earlier where I used the tear and tape and just stuck it down in that other butterfly where I just stuck it right on top of the adhesive. Well, this I then ran it, or stuck it into the heat and stick powder, then I heated it. And it then turns out all gravelly like the rest of the stuff. Unlike when I just put it directly onto the adhesive tear and tape stuff. So there's that one. I'm hoping I'm in the video. Oh, it might be a little bit off. I turned my camera around. The video to the camera today is at the other end. So that's it. I'll be back. Alright, so after I finished the leafing demonstration, I got out my magnolia. Good Morning Magnolia. I used the Thinking of You, and I used the flower that I created for you guys, and then I added the border on the side. I gingerly wiped it this time. I didn't let it sit like I did the first one. I just heat embossed it, stuck it on there, and then gingerly wiped it with my sponge. And then I went over with my finger lightly just to make sure I got all the little kind of pieces off. And then I added that little butterfly that I showed you guys that I made as well. So hoping you can see that okay. And that's it. Thanks. Okay, so have I scared you off? Or are you going to rush right out and get some gilded leafing? I won't keep wanting to call it gold leafing. But yeah, it's some crazy stuff. So comment on this video or go over to my Green Thumb Stampers Facebook page and let us know what works for you, if you've tried it or if you haven't tried it, if you want to try it, or if I've completely scared you off from it. I'm glad I bought it. I'm glad I tried it because it looks really cool, but I cannot believe how light it is and how staticky, and it just goes everywhere. So good luck with it. I do suggest that you put it in another container that you could put the lid on, put the dryer sheet in with it to reduce the static, and just go from there. You can also heat the leafing. When I made that card, the flower had already been done and my heat got on the flower while I was doing the border, and it doesn't do anything. So you can heat the leafing itself. I wouldn't hold the heat tool right on it for any length of time, but you can heat that if by chance you are doing something else or you missed a spot kind of thing and you want to try and touch it up. But that's it, guys. You guys have a great weekend, and I'll be back again next week for another version of Finally Friday. Talk to you later. Bye, guys.